Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions.
Executive Director of Sandag, Hassani Krata, if you can believe it, he's Iranian. He got his undergrad and master's degree from the University of Moscow in the USSR during the USSR times, and his specialty was central planning. And that's who we have running Sandag. So obviously, he is all for getting people out of their cars and into trolleys and buses. And so they passed the sales tax increase some years ago with selling it to us as a means of improving the commute, commute in our cars.
I remember that, yeah.
Corridor was one of the projects that they were going to do. They didn't do any of that.
Yeah.
And that original sales tax increase was for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
When it was getting close, like to nine years coming up, and it was going to expire, and they hadn't done any of that stuff. They did a lot of bike lanes and things like that. They extended the trolley line, but they did not do the freeway improvements that they had promised when they sold us the idea of doing the sales tax increase. So it was getting set to expire. So Sandag, under the direction of Hassani Krata, came back and said, okay, well, we're going to ask the voters to extend that sales tax increase. Only this time, instead of being for 10 years, it's for 40 years.
Whoa.
And the voters don't pay attention, and they voted it in. So now we have that sales tax increase in place for another 38 years, 37 years.
Oh, goodness. And
so again, they're not using the sales tax revenue that they promised us that they were going to use for roads and highways. They're using it for bike lanes. They're using it for the extension of the trolley line up to the UTC. They're using it for buses, the express bus lines. Mm-hmm. They are not using it for the 78 corridor or any of the other traffic and freeway improvements that they had promised us. So it's so vital for San Diego, for our well-being, for the happiness of just the general population. Our gardener travels across San Diego County to get to his work. Mm-hmm. And all these things make his life miserable. Yeah. You have to go through this horrible traffic, which was promised to be resolved 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we're still dealing with it because they did not do what they promised us. Yeah. But they're still taxing us. That's for sure. So these are all really, really important for San Diego County, that these little races like in Oceanside and Chula Vista, and the bigger races like Supervisor Joel Anderson and the District 1 supervisorial race that Mayor Kevin Faulkner's running for, that we take those back, because then we can put some sanity back in San Diego County. Yeah. It's not that difficult, actually. It's just we have to stop being woke and being more focused on really what's good for the people. Yeah. And our lifestyles. We are, we're not Europe, so we don't run our lives on the trolley line. I mean, that's just a fact of the matter. San Diego County is difficult to get around without your car. Mm-hmm. So making all the improvements on mass transit and ignoring the freeways is not for betterment of our quality of life. And
I agree with that.
Important issues. The other two important races we have coming up, but we have two judicial races coming up. And we've got very good candidates for those two races. If we didn't realize how important judges are, I think the last several years have taught us that having and it's not necessarily partisan, it's just having someone sane, common sense, feet on the ground, normal in these judge races, really has an impact on just normal things here in San Diego County. So those are also two races that we're focused on getting our people across the finish line. So those are all important things, and the mechanism behind getting all that, everybody on board with all this is daunting.
Yeah, to say the least, right? So I drive 3,000 to 4,000 miles a month inside San Diego County. So
Yeah.
that vehicle mileage tax really got my attention, right? So it's just another thing that they're coming up with where they're trying to tax us, and it's just awful. It's absolutely awful. And this agenda that they're pushing is not in our best interest, I don't believe.
No, it's not. And the thing is that unfortunately, San Diego County is being used by the left as a trial balloon. So whole idea was, if they managed to get the vehicle mileage tax through San Diego County and it flew, they got the voters to buy off on it, not realizing what they were voting for, because the ballot titles are always misleading. Then they were going to do it statewide, and as California goes the rest of the country, then they were going to spread it. So we were kind of like the trial balloon. So it's so important for San Diego County, but for the rest of the state and the country, that we were able to detonate that effort, so that that's not something that becomes the norm across the country.
Yeah, for sure. So I was at a Chamber of Commerce meeting the other day, and Mayor Dane White reported in that this thing had been killed and it was official and all that kind of thing. And there were a lot of people in that room that are business owners that were very, very happy with the result of what he was talking about. So, Dane has been on our podcast. We interviewed him a couple of months ago, and he has an amazing story. And it was great to have him come on and tell that, because I know that he inspired and motivated a lot of people. And I promise you, that's exactly what you're doing. There are a lot of people out there that will hear your story, and they'll be inspired and motivated to go out and start their own business, to go out and volunteer to run organizations like the San Diego County Republican Party. We're so incredibly blessed that you decided to take Tony up on his offer and to do this. It's really, really important to have you in the position that you're in, for us as Republicans, but for San Diegans, period. And I really, really appreciate the fact that you're doing this. And I cannot thank you enough for coming on our podcast with us. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about before we wrap up?
Yes, actually, I just want to make sure that everybody understands what's at stake. And we can no longer afford to sit on the couch and yell at the TV and be unhappy with things that are happening. The only way to make these changes is we all have to step up. And I know not everyone can do it as much as I'm doing. This is my way of giving back to the community, but everyone can contribute to the measure that they are able. So you can either just walk your neighborhood, or you can make calls to help a candidate. Pick a candidate. It doesn't matter. Pick one that you like, that you believe in your neighborhood or here in San Diego County, and help that candidate get the word out so people understand what's at stake. Or if you're not able to do that either, then write a check. Write a check either to the party to help us keep everything, the wheels going, or write one to one of your favorite candidates, because unfortunately this process does require resources. So, it helps your candidate get across the finish line. But I would implore everyone, we can no longer be on the sidelines. We can no longer pretend like we don't really know what's going on, because we're seeing the impacts of people not getting involved. And you can't complain after the fact. You have to be involved before everything takes place. So I would ask that everybody, please get involved. We're really active on trying to get our precinct operations up and running. And we're going to be doing actively ballot harvesting and door knocking, precinct ops, so that we can get the word out. And, Republicans typically don't like doing this kind of thing. And a lot of people complain about the ballot harvesting, but unfortunately, those are the rules that we have here in the state of California. So we need to play by the rules that we have. And these are the rules. So we're going to be actively working with different community groups, with the churches in ballot harvesting, so we can make sure that everyone understands what's at stake and participates.
Yeah, and it really, you make a great point. It really does come down to what you can do, right? So that RSV thing that was going around, that chest congestion thing that virus was going around, I got that right before this last election. And I was recovering from it, and it took a little while. It took longer than normal to get that stuff loosened up and get it out. And I was still having coughing fits, but I didn't want to be around people because I didn't know what my immune system was like, but I did want to contribute. I did want to have, an impact. So I did call the Republican Women's Federation, and they told me, because I told them, I said, I want to help. I want to, I can make calls, right? I can't go someplace necessarily, but I can make calls. Yeah. So they sent me a list. They said, Joel Garcia is fine in Escondido. He's good to go. But, Dane White's way behind. And so they put me together with Joel. Joel put me together with Dane. Dane and I talked on the phone briefly. He got together with his campaign manager and sent me a list. And I made several hundred phone calls for him right before the election happened, like 3, 4, or 5 days, right? I did what I could. And that's really what I feel like is most important, is people, like you said, people will sit and they'll yell at the television, but then they won't really do anything to help move the needle. And if everybody just does a little bit, if they just do what they can, right? Even if it's your neighbor can't drive themselves to the polls, or you go and pick up your neighbor's ballot and you bring it to a place where you can drop it off. Those types of things. I mean, every little bit helps. Every little bit helps, and everybody needs to get involved. And you're not joking. This is an all hands on deck moment. This is as good as it gets.
And the reason why we have Gavin Newsom instead of Larry Elder right now is because the gap between Larry Elder and Gavin Newsom was the number of Republicans that sat at home and pouted and did not vote. Yeah. So we cannot afford to do that any longer. Yes, we're outnumbered, but we're really not outgunned, because if we all step up and Republicans all vote, we can bring it home, but we have to do it. We have to step up. We have to get involved. We have to do our part, no matter how big or how small. Yeah. Everyone contributing, we can get it done.
Yeah, and it's not, I agree with what you're saying. And here's something that I would also suggest. We don't have to be completely livid in order to vote. That's not necessary. Okay, we don't have to let this thing metastasize to a point to where we end up I mean, we have elected Republicans in this state before. It has happened. Look at Ronald Reagan, right? One of my favorite Republicans. I'm a Republican because of Ronald Reagan and the effect that he had on me at an impressionable age, right? This is something that I think people need to think about. We don't need to be completely mad and livid and beside ourselves in order to get up off the couch and do something, in order to get involved, in order to make a difference, in order to do what we can in our own little neighborhood. There was a very wise man that once said, if you want to change the world, start in your own little corner of it, right? That's what I would implore people to do. Start in your own little corner, okay? Talk to your neighbors, get involved, right? Do what you can do. I totally agree. And thank you so much for saying that. That really means a lot. And I cannot thank you enough for being here. I know how busy you are, and I know it was difficult to get us scheduled and all that. I cannot thank you enough for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. And thank you for being our guest on the Mike Litton Experience.
My pleasure. My pleasure. But
thank you so much.
To vote, we got to get these Republicans across the finish line.
Absolutely. And we need to vote early. Okay. Yeah. The other side's doing it. We need to vote early, and we need to get the people around us to get up off, like you said, get up off the couch, stop yelling at the TV, and get in there, right? Get in the game.
Yep.
Let's get going.
All right.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. Having me. Have a good day today. Thanks for joining us. We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.